But don't forget, these people are smart, and they've already gamified for the gold bugs and the silver bugs as well. So they have a plan for us too, I'm afraid. And my sense is that the clipboard comes out, who owns what, and you will be forced under major draconian laws.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and this is the Miles Franklin Weekly Special for December 20th through December 27th, 2022, while supplies last. This week we feature backdated silver maples at $4.99 over spot, the lowest premium we've seen on maples in months. Made by the Royal Canadian Mint, these random year silver maples are known for their purity, beauty, and recognizability. One of the most popular silver bullion coins in the world. Their 4/9 fine, or 99.99% pure silver, are only $4.99 over spot and come $25 to a tube and $500 to a box, and are IRA eligible. Speaking of IRAs, if you'd like to learn more about a precious metals IRA, call us, and we'll be happy to help you in that process. Our number for all orders is 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.
Hey everyone, this is Elijah K. Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and back with us today is our good friend Francis Hunt from the Market Sniper. Francis, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, absolute pleasure, and thank you for having me back again, Elijah.
Well, it's great to have you. You've been definitely treasured by our guests here. They always appreciate our interviews with you. And last time we had you on, you were talking about the digital dollar and how kind of the different scenarios that could happen for a transition into a new system. And one of the things that you mentioned, which really caught my attention, is that holding your wealth is 9/10 of the law. So it's really important to have wealth outside of the system so that, whatever kind of scenario we go to in the future, you still have something of real value in your possession. Now, you just also did an interview with Bill Holter from Miles Franklin as well, another Miles Franklin broker there. And we have him on quite a bit as well. And you talked about how, those holding precious metals should also be considering they can change the government can change the rules at any time. There has been gold nationalization in the past. So we should be, on the lookout and realize that, the government can do anything. And I know we also talked to Rafi Farber recently, and he said there's nothing they won't try to take your wealth in the future. So I wanted to get your perspective on those of us who hold precious metals. What should we be concerned about for the future?
It's absolutely correct. I think it was Mr. Farber you mentioned, but Bill was great company as well. Possession is 9/10 of the law, is the rule. And even that doesn't 100% protect you, but the problem they have is that they then will want to. So here's a couple of scenarios how things could go, because that also deals with your major query. I do like the framing. So this is the framing to have of this entire question. Take yourself mentally into your most executive center. Say, all I can be is a man of principle and live by good principle. That's all you can do. So it's important that people don't get overstressed, because you can go into this process and you can become like a manic street preacher, doomsday. And often some people might even think I sound like that. I hope not too much. Gamify this entire thing. This is the game of life. If you played video machines as a young man, this is actually a game. And there are a lot of, unfortunately, what I call NPCs, non-playable characters, that are moving around and not seeing what's going on. Do not waste time engaging unnecessarily there. Give some amount of attempt to see, but if there's no light inside the eyes, move on. Your goal is to preserve yourself and family, and then friends that are like-minded, maybe a little behind, but understand that there's something going on. If you aren't suspicious after the 3 years we've just had, you're never going to be. So with that said, treat it as a game. It takes the stress off. We get a chance of life. We've got an experience. This whole life and death thing can get a bit hairy mentally for a lot of people, especially, wives and kids. You don't need to involve them unnecessarily, and just go into that higher executive center and say, I personally see the end game for them as requiring everybody to essentially need to be a ward of state. So this is a technological Bolshevik communism in essence, but it won't look like what you saw of 1919 communist Russia so much, although it'll have a lot of the attributes, a lot of the templates, and a lot of the games that are played there are being played right now in the cultural wars and many of the other things. I mentioned the phrase inversion, perversion, some of the very cranky stuff that's coming out on culture and gender and all of that. It's not part of your question, but it is actually all part of this macro offensive. So you are in a war game because you've chosen aliens or space invaders and you're playing, only you're now in the machine. So just gamify this, relax. You live and die a man of principle, you've lived a great life. And inherently their game is to strip you so that you are entirely at their whim and will sign and agree and comply to whatever's put in front of you on a basis of, and I refer to the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's a pyramid. I'm not doing some cranky conspiracy signage there. And it had lots of layers in it. The base needs are at the bottom. That's food, shelter, energy. This is where your prepper guys that are seeing this are enacting. And actually money, transactions, gold and silver form part of that. Wealth goes a little bit higher up, and gold serves actually on every one of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I'll send you a diagram actually, which you're welcome to tweet out or include with the recording if you like. And they go higher up. When you're already incredibly wealthy, you've done a lot of great things, you pursue the higher needs. How will you be perceived post-death? What's your big lasting contribution? These are the grand transcendence goals. But we're going to be taken right back to the base layer. And if you have no wealth in the system that they have created for you, you are utterly, utterly owned and controlled. And as someone who seeks to be his own master, choose his own principles that he thinks he should live by, I do not like that notion. So that's the game. They want to enforce on me. They have an immense amount of weapons, but we also have numbers. So they have media and many other things. They have derivatives for manipulating markets. All of these things are part of the arsenal that we face. So it's a challenging game. I don't want to use the phrase Hunger Games because it gets a little bit more dark and depressing, but you're in the arcade. And so for me, retaining wealth is owning it. Because at least in the game, they actually would have to know you own it, know where you keep it, and come in and force upon you to shed it. So that doesn't mean those things cannot happen. It just means a lot of other things will have fallen, and more ordinary people and I don't want to say everyone's an NPC, but there's a lot of people that don't see anything funny going on. They will have their hands full with the orchestration and the managing of this entire process. So I see the reset as actually being far more all-encompassing than many people realize. It's social, it's socially disruptive. You're going to see a lot of intermediaries disappear and a lot more direct interface with state entities. And I see there's an attack vector on families and various other things which were not part of the discussion, but you've got to recognize that all these things are coming at you. And so what is the preservation of wealth? Well, we're in the right space talking about precious metals, having a collection of silver and gold. And that's where I say the physical holding thereof is 9/10 of the law. But you can't have it all yourself. Unless you're prepared to have lots of holes in your back garden. Don't forget, people can search for that. It will be quite an extreme moment of stripping, but I've also noticed in a number of countries, they're not allowing metals to leave country national borders now. This isn't just a China concept. A couple of banks that were in the US, if purchases were being made, those particular banks were not allowing it to be of precious metals if the buyer was offshore. That led to the product being moved offshore. And I'm like going, hold on a minute, since when is that the case? So in other words, a non-American living outside of America buying, say, Scottsdale or Miles Franklin bars, now through certain banks, they want to know about it. They want to know what you're buying. This is a level of questioning that we should not even be submitting to. in my freedom-seeking opinion, as long as I'm not buying arms and planning to wage a war or dealing in drugs, what I'm actually spending my money on should be none of their business. If I have no faith in the system, I will make the investments that represent that, for which physical gold and silver is part thereof. But don't forget, these people are smart, and they've already gamified for the gold bugs and the silver bugs as well. So they have a plan for us too, I'm afraid. And my sense is that the clipboard comes out, who owns what, and you will be forced under major draconian laws. And this might feel very much like, and I don't want to get your channel into any trouble, but the events of March 2020, where you decided if you would or you wouldn't, and they started to use enforcement. You could get enforcement for registration. Initially, it's benign. Listen, it's part of citizens' knowledge and interface. We wish to know whether you own. We have the following invoices. This could come through bullion dealers too. You could have it just like crypto exchanges are being captured and told, we want to know everybody who owns, send all the IRS information from Coinbase to them. That guy who bought a Bitcoin at $1,000, it's now 16,000, etc. What does he owe? So the extraction mechanism is there from a taxation point of view, and also the special areas of value that might do rather well that will have further extraction and the possibility of confiscation. So the first thing they're going to want to do is get you on grid. They don't want to spook you too much. So the concept of going through bullion dealers, we need to know this. So there are a lot of threats. You haven't ended the game just because you own silver and gold. Because if bullion dealers around the world are being enforced by a number of governments that all seem to be coordinated by UNESCO, IMF, World Economic Forum, etc., list them all, to do certain things, you'll be forced first to register under threat of fine and this, in much the same way that certain people that refused the treatment that came as a result of the events of March 2020, some of them lost jobs or were marginalized, didn't get increases or put aside. A lot of things have happened. So you could find the same thing. And you're probably very aware of the 33 in 1933, the quite draconian level of threat. I think the fine was huge for those times. I don't want to speak out of turn whether it was $10,000 or whatever the case, or X amount of years in jail. But that was when $10,000 bought you a house almost. In fact, a very good house, I think, back in the States. So this is what I expect you to spend. Now, the thing is, if you know a decision is coming, you can start deciding when that level of threat comes, what you're going to do. Are you going on grid with what you're owning, or are you going off? I think that's the next step for bullion holders, you see, because they're not stupid. They know we're out here. They know they're running a hyper-stagflationary game. And they know that many of us understand that debt is being devalued by a much lower rate to the actual, for you, Elijah's inflation rate. And that's not what the CPI print is. It's not what the BLS print is. It's much closer to what John Williams of Shadow Stats will tell you, and it will vary by your economic standard. Anyway, I've spoken for a while, but that's an initial gamification point that I would like people to start thinking about next.
So one of the things that really caught my attention is right at the beginning, really taking responsibility and realizing, all we can do is live by principle, and the outside world is going to throw a lot of things at us, and we just have to be prepared as much as we can. When it comes to those holding precious metals, I think keeping it private and secure is really important there. Anything else in your view? Because what is the precedent for this? I know back in the 30s, the government nationalized gold. They said, turn in your ounces of gold for $20 an ounce, and then they revalued it to $35 right after. So, and other countries I know have done similar gold confiscations in the past. So what is the precedent for this, and what are some of the expectations we should see going forward?
Yeah, very good question. The value of the particular lifestyle I've chosen to live, which is very much based around being a child of these times, is that I have multiple geographies of existence. Now, you will probably know, whilst most things were pretty uniform. And I hate to keep referring back to the same event, but if I just say March 20 event, everybody knows what I'm referring to, in terms of the science. But there were quite different levels of enforcement degrees. There was some arbitrage. There were some differentials. Some places were particularly draconian. Others, people continued to move around quite extensively within the country. I would actually say the States was pretty good. A lot of people still visited family members and friends in other states. So using that model, you can see that whilst in other countries, by the way, let's just take China, for example, you could be in a one-bedroom apartment with a door bolted, and they're having to order takeaways that get pushed under the door. So it's a totally different experience, and for which, whilst at the top line level, the policy and everything was the same, as you get down to how it works out for you, there can be a massive broadening. So a small degree of difference in enforcement's tone and everything can lead to a substantial different lifestyle. In the same way for precious metals. So I would actually say there's a great case to be made for multiple jurisdictions with different legalese, and throw in a few different languages in there. And part of our service that we have is, we have Spanish contracts, foundations, which are the same, I dare call them weapons that many of the people I think that are working against us actually utilize. You're entitled to do these things too. They can't make a law that it's only for a certain person that's a member of the Club of Rome, for example. So you can use these tools too, and you can have Spanish law and you can have different jurisdictions. And we have very, very trustworthy people that are in the same mindset that I've met and seen the facilities that are holding there, and still hold some, I say, inverted commas, at home in that region. So I also stay very close to where the vault is there when I'm there. And you can have some hidden at home, which could be garden, could be anywhere, could be best neighbor, doesn't even know he's carrying it for you, he's going to live there for 50 years, whatever arrangements you make. So multiple jurisdictions, and expect, as part of the gamification game, that you're going to lose. You see, the thing is, I set such low expectations. That's maybe why I might sound like a doomsday or a bit black-pilled, is that actually anything that doesn't get taken is actually straight away good. So I'm expecting all of these things to happen. I live quite forward-centric, and I read the history to see what's gone, and then I apply it forward. So you've got to take time and live in that beautiful moment, love your family, kiss them. You might lose and have it all stripped away, and you still had an incredible life. You've done many beautiful things. So you've got to just accept there's a certain degree that you can go against an organized, weaponized state. But at the same time, I am not afraid. While a lot of people, there's a lot of fear and there's a lot of compliance. And I think, again, March of 2020 showed that. I was adamant in my opinions, and on this thing, you will face a similar fork where you're either adamant. Now, you can be sacrificially martyrdom adamant, or you can be smart adamant, where you can do a partial disclosure, for example. So if I showed up at your door representing just this innocent dark state type entity in a cop uniform of some sort, it could be, ATF, what's it, your alcohol traffic. Oh, we just need to know if you're holding any bullion. Can you please provide this? You could do a partial disclosure. You could have small safe, big safe, basement, hole in the ground out back, so that if you're already on record as, like, say for the two of us, we're in the industry, we talk about it all the time. If I said, I was just joking that whole time I showed up on Elijah's program, gold, that's a dumbass thing. They're not going to buy that because, unfortunately, I'm too convincing and I'm too straightforward. So I say, okay, yeah, you got me. It's really sad. When can I get it back? Negotiate the best terms, get a lawyer and do that. But then maybe you should have a deed of sale somewhere lying around to somebody far away, preferably named Muhammad, very far off land, maybe, different law, different ethnicity. And you should probably, there's a couple of things you could do. I would never suggest to somebody to do anything illegal, but that's just me gamifying this process, saying, would I? And I'll have to make that decision, and you might have to do it too. The people that held out and didn't return their gold in 1933 did exceedingly well and saw the equivalent of $800 instead of $20. The people who handed it over got sheared. So I'm just saying, How badly do you want to retain your wealth? It's the second most important thing to family and life itself. To me, it's not the most important thing. And, it's part of the game, and I want to win. I want to win for me and the people around me, and I want to see other people win. So I'd like to have a lot of pokers in that fire. So that's one particular scenario. And I do think the registration of precious metals precedes their interest. That doesn't necessarily mean it will lead to an eventual confiscation, but they could then let the price go, or they could revalue it and then throw massive tax bills at you on the basis that, again, stigmatize you as somebody who's caused a shortfall in silver, and that's why we can't have enough battery vehicles because these nutcase preppers are, cornered the market with everybody doing this stupid stuff. And, we all need an industrial price for silver, and we need a crackpot nutcase price, which is much, much higher to prevent these, funny rock collectors. They'll do stuff like that, and they'll weaponize media. And you'll have neighbors and friends looking at you, oh, you're one of the funny rock collectors, and and it's because of you we can't get this and this. So every aspect of scarcity and pain will be somehow inflicted and brought down upon you. So you might again be, and I can't help but refer, March 2020, if you had a certain view and you were in a company that had dictated a preference for a certain line that saw you take up all forms of treatment, you will be sidelined, marginalized. All the social constructs and pressures could be brought against you. This is a game where, I think of it as running that obstacle course. To get to the end, you're going to be puffed out, and you'll have really earned everything you hold. And you might have lost some weight and some things along the way. But just to get to the end will be a great victory. So, that's what I'd give you on that.
And I'd also like to discuss the kind of the market action we've seen in precious metals right now. But kind of before we do, the last point to discuss maybe is that people can also just be shaken out of the metals, right? Because if we look back at what happened in March of 2020, you saw a huge plunge in the metals as the world was, collapsing, shutting down and everything. And you saw a huge plunge in the paper price. So what do you expect this time if we see, this monetary reset, this collapse, whatever is going to be coming in the future?
Absolutely. It's such a key point that you bring up. It's a brilliant question, actually. I mean, this is my useless fiat that I bring out to, show people these promissory notes. I have a dollar bill in here. I have rands. I have a 500,000 Zimbabwean note in here. I should get it a bit closer to the screen for you guys. I have Turkish, money and all of this. I do this out of that, but you do need to hold cash. You see, it's counterintuitive because you will be forced out at the bottom. I've said people have got themselves into the best investments only to fail for the lack of this. And I would hold all the major currencies. Even when you're in Euroland, I see value to holding dollars because of its international proliferation. When you're in America, I think you only need really dollars. But if you're in Euroland, you should have an absolute large sum of physical cash. Because the game will be the banking system is their toy that they control in a simplistic sense. It's not a profound statement. I'm just reducing this to common layman's points. So they will put restrictions on limits, and then they'll terminate entirely. There'll be entire dark periods where you won't have access to money, and how do you transact? Everybody will be freewheeling, and the larder will be getting empty. And there'll be concerns about crime and payrolls being met and people showing up to do their jobs like security guards or night watchmen, et cetera, et cetera. So this is that void space where they want they actually want a high degree of problem, because this is where you then beg them to come rushing for the solution and you accept whatever they put in front of you. So you need to have cash, and I'm afraid you need to be able to look after your security of both yourself and your family at the same time. None of this is the first time you're going to be hearing that. But was a brilliant question, because if you only hold gold and silver, you'll only be able to, I'll take it off you happily for goods and services, but you might not need my services down. You'll need this, if you're in the States, you're going to need someone in your state down the road to sell you tomatoes and eggs, rather importantly, and he's going to want something that's recognized, and he might not be bullion friendly. But even in your bullion choices, take some silver nuggets right down to small weights and coins. Don't just have the big bars if you're a high net worth person. So you need the size denominations as well, but you must have a certain amount of cash. Until cash ceases to be legal tender, you should actually all be doubly high on cash. And let me tell you, you're missing nothing in the investment market. Worst bond year, worst equities year. Your portfolio's gone up in relative terms on everything else, largely, with very few exceptions. So cash is something that is an absolute imperative as well.
And before we let you go, Francis, if we could get a quick market update on the metals, because we have seen really since the last time we had you on a dramatic increase in both gold and silver. So where do you see them right now, and where do you see them going into 2023?
Great. I did just get an alert pop on our gold versus pound, and I was just looking at that. But for most people, particularly the US audience, it's the dollar that matters. So I've been a little bit cautious short term. So when you ask a question like that, it's short term, medium term, and long term. So it's different answers for all of them. The short term is actually showing a bit of price decay, and it's slowing down. So I would expect a bit of a pullback. We also know the dollar has been selling off quite extensively, but it's running into more support levels now and getting more pushback. So it absolutely is there is an inverse correlation with the metal. So we're on the daily chart so that everybody's clear with what we're looking at. And we're on gold futures, the daily. And what I've drawn for you is I'll just put it in a darker, more apparent colors so that everybody can see. But if we're watching the day, the recent days, while it's up, you get good up and you get bad up. This is showing signs of decay. So this is typically what I'd call a rising wedge type structure. I split it down the middle, and it's usually a precursor to a break through this lower, which we refer to as a basing grind line. So you're getting dip buying, but it's getting exhausted. Initially, you could see there was real power. This was explosive out of a constriction. So that was traditional technical analysts will tell you a triangle. We have our own methodology. Guys can go to the market sniper if they want to find out more. But this basing grind line will fall at some point. And it dovetails with the dollar's current progress. The dollar will probably start firming again. I don't know if you followed the yen developments and everything. Everybody's winding back the dollar dominance trade. And I think it's gone too far. And I am expecting it to come back. So if the dollar starts coming back, paper dominance, a paper price dominance is going to be under a lot of pressure. So I expect this on the daily that you are going to trade lower and you're going to go back into the 1700s. Is that a crisis? Should you care on day-to-day basis? No, it should be accumulation points. And if they have, in previous discussions where we've met, I've mentioned the substantial consequential demand killing event that I suspect is likely. Remember, in these somewhat the gamification part of this discussion at the beginning of our chat, there's a situation where you no longer have access to money. Hack, system down, a whole bunch of things, other war, who knows, without going deep dive there. So the point is, I feel we have that. That's how you curtail inflation. This level of inflation almost needs very similar to scale event as we just recently had March 20. So again, I think it could be even bigger, but it'll have a different nature to it, but it's going to lead to affecting us in different ways. And access to capital, cash, hence why, again, I reiterate, have the cash so that you're not forced to sell the gold at the lowest price, the paper price that they'll manipulate you down out of. They'll pick it up and they'll ride it all up. Don't let them do that to you. The game is to hang on. But if it's a choice between feeding family and children, you will have to sell. So don't be caught out. Have enough cash. So short term, I feel it goes down. And if the demand-driven event that I think, you're going to get a super buying price as well, again. And then that point, many weekends that haven't seen this will unfortunately be squeezed out. How low could that be? And I don't think it stays for long. So for a lot of people that won't enjoy me saying that, it's bad. It sounds like bad news. It should actually. Rick Rule and the likes of him will tell you it's great news. He's going to bring up the truck a little bit, and he'll load up some more. But it could lead to, falling back below the 1680 and possibly retesting and falling below. If I show you the March 2020 events, It was reasonably substantial, but we were in a bull run then, which we're not in now. Compare that fall to what it did to Bitcoin. Bitcoin lost about 75, 80%, but gold was already in a clearly signaled bull run move. So that's actually the best situation to have to face such a scale of events. There was clear bid coming in, but still it took you down to 1450. And those of you that are silver buffs, of which I am one as well, silver traded, and I'll bring that chart up to give you the full view. Silver traded right the way down to an incredible $11. That didn't mean you could buy it for $11.50, but even with $4 or $5 premium, it's still pretty cheap silver. So you would potentially get that same opportunity again. And that's my fear short term. And the same goes a little bit for the silver target. There might be one more push higher. So I'll just show you technically on the silver chart on a slightly lower time frame. I'll just take it to 12 hours, which is half a day. So we can just get this particular price action so people can at least feel why I say it. We don't suck numbers out of our thumb. There is a bit of a reversal pattern that hasn't entirely finished on silver. And I suspect possibly for gold. So it doesn't mean immediately that's about to break. We might get another marginally higher high. So this is part of the grinding up. You've had the fast move up, and now you're in the grinding stage. You can grind a little more. It's quite possible we could see $25 fall, and I would see that as a blow-off moment. And I'm not a trader within that. If I was trading the paper price, I would close there. My investments are my investments, but I think you could get a blow-off for silver through the 25. Where did that come from? It came from a pattern here, a reversal pattern. So left shoulder or type W bottom, really. You've had a triple bottom in essence there with a key level in and around just below the 21. And that gives you natural price geometry, which is so consistently met just sub 25. So you could short term get a little bit higher, and that's going to make everyone feel great. And a nice Christmas, etc. It might not make it in this first go. It might need a breath first because it's showing some fatigue, but it could get one final blow off, for example, or it goes down first, it winds up, and then you go. But then at some point, I do think we're going down again. It's not straightforward. We are not yet at the moment where the paper price is going to reflect the full hyper-stagflation of the economy. We're not yet there. And in fact, the next gift will be the big deflationary effect of the demand, I think, that will come. So that shouldn't change what you do as an investor. And again, your great question, people should also retain cash.
Fantastic. Well, Francis, thank you so much for your time today. Before we let you go, where can our viewers find you if they're interested in more of your analysis and insights here?
Yes, absolutely. TheMarketSniper.com is our website. We have technical charting. We are macro technical traders. We're known for calling the single digit oil the top of the bond markets, which we believe many people have come around to accepting 2 years ago. We aim to do key macro technical, not high volume. We're not day traders sitting on screens. Key macro major moves that actually are the economic core theme for often 18 months, 2.5 years and onwards to get those correctly. And we were actually a long gold at the same time as the single oil. So that is our core objective. And that should help build you wealth in reset times and also help you preserve it, which some of the things with regarding structures, building cash and other things are a core part of our proposition. So if people like that, they're welcome to join us. We're very well supported in the American community, the Canadian community, and everyone on your timeline and your audience group. We give thanks to them. And thank you for having me on. It's been a pleasure as ever.
It's always great to have you, Francis. Thank you so much. Merry Christmas and God bless.
Same to you, Elijah.
Miles Franklin Precious Metals is one of America's oldest and most trusted bullion dealers. Miles Franklin is A+ rated and accredited by the Better Business Bureau, licensed and bonded, and has 0 complaints ever registered. Here at Liberty and Finance, we are licensed brokers with Miles Franklin. To order, simply call us, discuss your needs, and we will let you know our live inventory, prices, and availability, and lock in your order over the phone. Once your order is locked, the price is held for you regardless of market fluctuations, and the metals are reserved for you awaiting your settled payment within 1 business day of ordering. You will receive an email invoice detailing the order and payment instructions. Miles Franklin accepts payments by bank wire, ACH or electronic check, money order, check mailed priority mail, and cryptocurrency. The fastest forms of payment are bank wire and cryptocurrency. Upon settled payment, metals will ship out within 3 to 5 business days. You will receive tracking information via email. Domestic shipping charges are $15 for any order under 500 ounces of silver or 10 ounces of gold. For orders larger than that, domestic shipping is free. The package will be double boxed, fully insured, and labeled discreetly, with no indication of the contents inside. For your privacy, the name Miles Franklin will not even be on the package. To talk to myself, Elijah, my brother Kaiser, or my father Dunnigan, call 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237.